Hey everyone, and welcome to the Mic'd Avengers podcast, where we focus on martial arts and action cinema, but definitely delve into much more. My name is Jason from Martial Arts Theater 3000. I've been a lifelong fan of martial arts movies from Bruce Lee to the Venom Mob, Bruceploitation, and everything in between.
My name's Dragon, aka the Fanatical Dragon on YouTube. I also write the Blu-ray reviews for Eastern Heroes magazine right here in the UK. I'm about 4 decades into this love affair with East Asian cinema, specifically action cinema. Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan and the Shaw brothers got me into Hong Kong films, but unlike my buddy Jason, I've seen a whole bunch of Japanese, Indonesian and South Korean action flicks too. So over the coming episodes, every so often, we're going to force feed him something he has not seen.
And I'm Shaun, also known as Foo for Thought. It all started for me at the tender age of 14, where I discovered Jackie Chan's Drunken Master. From there, I kind of delved into old school Kung Fu, and that has been my passion for 30 plus years now. I also started delving into all realms of Asian cinema, and I'm very happy to say that these days I have a pretty strong passion for kind of dark Korean thrillers. If you like what you hear and you're enjoying the podcast, please give us a like, share, and subscribe. And please enjoy this episode of the Mic'd Avengers.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Mic'd Avengers podcast. This is episode 9, and I am so excited because we are covering Soul Brothers of Kung Fu, our first Bruceploitation episode.
Although there was the question, is this a Bruceploitation film?
Yes, we will get into that. Mm-hmm. As always, we got with us Shaun, Foo for Thought.
Hey. Johnny,
the Fanatical Dragon.
Greetings.
And I'm Jason from Martial Arts Theater 3000. And let's just jump right into it. Dragon, do you want to give us a little synopsis about, tell everyone what this movie's about?
Indeed, I do. This time we have 3 to kind of go from. I'm kicking off with probably the worst one first, which is from Google, which says an international championship leads to a confrontation between a rising martial artist and a trio of evil masters, which is confusing.
Yes.
IMDb does a little bit better and says 2 illegal immigrants meet a young kid and the 3 become best friends until one of them joins the triads. Now the remaining 2 must fight the triads in a battle to the death, which is better. Technically it's 3 illegal immigrants.
Yeah.
And then weirdly Wikipedia does it best in the least amount of words, and that tells us 3 refugees in Hong Kong befriend a young teenager and get mixed up in a world of gangs and violence.
Killer.
Simple, but right to it.
Yeah, very much so.
Solid stuff.
No, I like it because it's like good how meld all 3 of them and it makes sense in a way.
Yeah, that's true.
But what none of them fail to kind of convey is that this is quite possibly one of the best Bruce Lee movies.
I'm kind of reserved, and I want to go through all of you guys to hear what you think. So I don't blow my top out the gate. But Shaun, tell us where you first saw this one and how was the rewatch and your opinions.
Yeah, this one's an interesting one for me. For those that don't know, I came very late to Bruceploitation. As a young whippersnapper, I avoided Bruceploitation like the plague because I thought it was anti-Bruce Lee, and I was like, nope, not going to watch any of that garbage. And then about 2 years ago, I decided I'm going to give Bruceploitation a go. So if anyone doesn't know about my journey, I watched 50 Bruceploitation films in 1 month. And I powered through a whole bunch of them, and this was one of them. And yes, as I thought, this one was a standout. I watched this, and it absolutely blew me away. It's really, if you really think about it, it's head and shoulders above many of them. By that I mean, not only is it better, but it's vastly better than a number. And don't get me wrong, I love Bruceploitation now, and I love a lot of Bruceploitation films. But revisiting this one, it really let me know just how better it is above so many of them. It's definitely up there with the likes of Dynamo, of course, same director. By the way, this director, he has some absolute gems under his name. He's incredible. Why don't we talk about this guy? As a director, he's directed some incredible stuff. But one thing I really wanted to say about this film, and one thing that really stands out, it absolutely blows me away that this film was made in 1977.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew.
Yeah, in terms of choreography and action, it just feels years ahead of its time. And it feels like it's that old school style of action, but there's like this modern grittiness to it. Like it doesn't feel like patterned shapes too much, but it's not a basher either. So it's kind of straddling some middle ground. And I don't know. I just think for a 77 film, it's fantastic. Fantastic cast.
I've got a little bit of a theory on why that might be, but we'll get to that in due course.
Oh, interesting. I think I'm trying to look now. So the fight choreography was Yoon Chun Yang, and did you say his name Su Sia or Su Sia? How do you say his name? HSUHSIA. I struggle with that one. Majorly.
Are you
I think that's probably closer to Zhu Xia.
Okay, Zhu Xia.
Don't quote me. If my wife was here, she'd be like, "No."
Yeah, Dragon, you're supposed to be teaching us on this.
That one's a tricky one, but that guy, as far as the fight choreographer, he's had his hands in so many classics. It's unbelievable. He's like Wu Ping's kind of right-hand man in a number of films.
Mm-hmm.
Well, before we dissect it, I just want to say a small thing is I think you guys notice it's more bashery when they're outside in those like areas or whatever, the construction areas. You've seen all of them. Yeah. And when it's the one-on-ones, it suddenly has more shapes and acrobatics.
Absolutely. Agreed. It's complex.
So who knows if these two guys split them up or something, split up the scenes, or
don't know. It's also incredibly brutal in places in a way that you don't always see from movies of this time, like kind of
absolutely
people getting their heads bashed against rocks and walls and stuff. It's kind of it's pretty full on.
Yeah. It's top tier. It's such a good Bruceploitation film. Fuck it, let's just say it's a good kung fu film. Yeah. I won't even say it's a good Bruceploitation film.
It's barely a Bruceploitation movie because like I had this thing where I was kind of lamenting the fact that this wasn't on that first volume of the Clones box set, but then thought I can sort of see why it's not, because it isn't very Bruceploitation-y, like beyond like maybe one or two lines of dialogue when they're like, yeah, he kind of fights a bit like Bruce Lee, which I think was probably not even in the original. I haven't heard it in its original language, right? And I'm sure that probably wasn't necessarily there. I don't know, because
I'd actually say this is about medium, because on the box set, it had the Cameroons and like Challenge of the Tiger. It had ones that really didn't have. On this one, I think like halfway through, it's barely Bruceploitation, and then it's they start talking about Bruce Lee. Then the yellow tracksuits start coming in, and by the end, Bruce Lee's actually doing, which he rarely does, the Bruce Lee noises and the. So I'd say it's like medium up, lower medium fair. Amount.
That's fair. I like how they switch it up on us as well. Like when they put him in the yellow sweatpants. Like, no, guys, 2 stripes on these ones. It's not Bruce Lee. There's 2 stripes distinctly.
Yes. and Bruce's is a jumpsuit, one piece. This is tracksuit broken
absolutely.
Up. So
but yes, very special film. I'm sure we'll get into it a little bit later, but I fully agree with the one Quentin Tarantino on this film.
Oh, cool! You watched that clip?
Oh nice yeah, I actually saw it before you shared it. I'd come across it, and just a fantastic clip. Just listening to, for those that don't know, we're talking about a clip on YouTube where Tarantino absolutely gushes about this film, and it's wonderful. It's a
hybrid cut from the Pure Cinema podcast, which is his theaters podcast. They like cover all his movies. It's the one we've mentioned a few times with Dan Houston from Hollywood Theater. And that channel, what he does is when he wants to get Quentin Tarantino's thoughts on a movie, he finds all of them and kind of shoots them together or like edits them together. That's my only little grievance on that podcast. It's like Quentin was like in some bathroom on speakerphone. I don't know if you noticed, the audio is just atrocious on his voice. But it's everything he says about Soul Brothers from that podcast in 10 minutes straight away. So he's like,
it's incredible. Granted, he probably gets a little more out of it than I do, because he was really seen a lot in it, Tarantino. But it's a delightful clip.
I will correct you on one thing, Shaun, because this stuck with me when you told me. You said 2 years ago was your 50 movie. Actually, it was because of COVID. It was 5 years ago.
Jesus.
Yeah, because I remember we just started talking in 2021, and you told me in COVID, which was the previous year. But I've been hearing people say that. People often say 2 years ago when they mean 5, because there's like missing 2.5 years in the middle.
Yeah, totally.
Wow. I've been a Bruceploitation fan for 5 years now. Great.
Well, it stuck with when you said I watched 50 in a month. I was like, oh, this is my spirit animal. I was like, I don't even know if I could get like.
It was a crazy time. I was working from home, and quite frankly, I didn't have a lot to do in work, so I just watched multiple films a day, and I just watched Bruceploitation films all day. I watched some garbage, but my God, I found some gems.
For sure. Dragon. So tell me how you first, or your first memory.
Very similar to Shaun, really, because I also didn't, partly from not having access that easily to them, but I, for the longest time, hadn't really kind of dipped my toe fully into the Bruceploitation waters, and it was entirely you that kind of made me reconsider my stance on it. And it took you a little while. You very gently kind of used repetition and gentle goading, and I think kind of got me into the Clones Cast first. And the Clones Cast was an incredible podcast, right? And I would listen, sometimes I would listen to them speak about a movie that I hadn't seen, and then I would go away and watch it. In a couple of cases I think I'd seen like Enter the Game of Death, and I'd seen a couple of the biopics, The Man, the Myth, but there was a whole bunch of stuff that I hadn't. So really it was Jason. We've, in a way, what we do for you with the intervention episodes, you kind of did for me with Bruceploitation. So
that's great.
Timeline, I would also have said probably a couple of years, but then realistically, it is probably closer to like 4 since we first started speaking about that, and think like since you first started like sending me links to the Clones Cast. So yeah, same sort of timeline. So I probably saw this maybe for the first time probably about 4 years ago, I think. And latched onto it really quickly because it had Lo Mang in it, kind of because it was a real easy touchstone for me, because it's someone that I know really well from all of his Shaw Brothers movies, and always really enjoy seeing him outside of that, because I think sometimes he gets a chance to do a little bit more in the non-Shaw Brothers movies. He was always quite stoic anytime that he was with Shang-Chi, and I think probably also struggling a bit because he was the only guy that spoke Cantonese, surrounded by the rest of his co-stars who spoke Mandarin. So I almost feel that he was probably quite isolated when he was doing the Venom movies. But I think with this, you can tell that he was just having a blast kind of getting into the acting side of it as much as he was the fighting side. He's really good in this movie, man.
He really is.
He's got quite a heartbreaking little kind of wee arc. But there's a lot going on. There's so much going on in this movie for its very short runtime, right? Everybody kind of has a degree of an arc and a degree of a kind of journey to go on. And we should maybe say, before we go too deep into this, are we going to dedicate this episode to Carl?
Oh, yeah.
I think we have to.
Yeah, R.I.P. Carl Scott, a month ago maybe? Like 5 weeks or something?
So.
Yeah, something like that.
Not long after we decided that we were going to be doing this as our next episode.
Yes.
Yeah, for the listeners, we didn't choose this film because Carl Scott passed away. We literally had this film in mind, and unfortunately, Carl just happened to pass away, which is, just a bad timing. But absolute legend, Carl Scott is. The fact that he didn't do more, funny enough, I posted a clip of him recently, and Eric Jacobus from the Stunt People and from Contour and from God of War mocap and things like that, he was gushing over Carl Scott. He was like, he moves just like so few people move, and he was picking him apart, and he was just saying like, oh, this looks like a Korean move, and this looks like, he's got this Hong Kong style. And the crazy thing is, what really blew me away about this film, I had to do some math. Carl Scott's 16 years old in this film.
Oh, man. I did hear he's young. Wow.
He's 16 years old. And how can he, I couldn't, what's his background? Just martial arts?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
But at 16, I wouldn't be able to do any of this stuff. And he's bonkers.
Yeah, and he has like that starting shapes. When he separates from the guy, he does it, and it looks really like beautiful. I mean, he does, and the other thing is there was some discrepancy for a while. Some people thought this was 1978. You'll see online, it'll say that.
Yes, a lot of that.
Well, I guess what it was it was such a big hit in America, and it did come out in 78 in America, but it was released in October of 1977. So it's technically 77. So I guess you're saying 16 based off of that year, right?
Based off 77, yes. Okay. So they probably made it they probably made it the same year.
2 weeks before.
Exactly.
That conveyor belt, you know what I mean? You look at some of these actors, it's like 6 movies in one day, or 7 sometimes.
Exactly.
I mean, I think Alexander Fushang in one of these years did like 9 or something. There's so many.
What you need to do is check out Ku Feng's filmography. I'm sure he did like 8 a year.
And before we go on too further, but a quick shout out to everybody has to go and check out the interview that you did with Eric Jacobus.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
It's on Foo's YouTube channel, and I think for me, probably the most satisfying interview you've done so far.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you.
I love that. I really like the other ones, but I think partly just because of how much of a mega brain is on Eric. He's phenomenal, right? And
he's
kind of
a
operating in
man.
levels that a lot of people don't often examine.
Absolutely agree. He is. He just thinks on a different level than I am, and all I could do is sit back and ask questions and just let him go. And it was an absolute pleasure to do that.
that was the real joy of it, because normally he's on the other flip side of that. Normally he's the one asking questions, and I think some of his interviews are phenomenal. Like, he's had some amazing choreographers and people that he's spoken to, and he kind of goes kind of deep into the physics and the science in a way of violence and of movement in a way that no one else really does. And you can tell that it really connects with the people that he's speaking to, who are normally not really asked those sort of questions.
Yes.
So he gets gold from the people that he speaks to, and I thought you got a lot of gold out of him. So props.
Yeah.
Well done, man.
Thank you so much. It was an absolute pleasure. And if I can just plug something that's not related to me, it's actually related to Eric.
Course.
Please find his book and give it a read. It is an absolute joy. It's a short read. It gives you insight into Eric's life and his theory on violence, and it's an incredible read. A lot of fun.
Give us the title.
It's called "If These Fists Could Talk." There's a subtitle to it as well, and I always forget it. I'm so sorry. I did have a. Oh wait, hold on.
Is that related to These Fists Break Bricks? Is it like a similar?
No
relation.
Okay. It is called. I actually have it in front of me. No one can see because it's an audio podcast, but it's "If These Fists Could Talk: A Stuntman's Unflinching Take on Violence."
Oh,
so
that's
you guys
cool.
Can see that.
Oh,
Turn it on the back. It looks like when Dragon does unboxings on the back with his tattoo.
Yeah, I wish people could actually see this, but they can't. But genuinely, it's a 212 page book. So, but he packs so much into it, and by the way, I'm not making any money off this or anything, but it's a genuine delight to read. So,
he's everyone needs to, if you don't already follow his channel and check him out. He's phenomenal. And I think biggest revelation for me was finding out that he is like the mocap guy behind the main character in God of War.
Yeah, he is Kratos.
Very, very cool. And hearing him speak about basically how difficult and how different it was doing mocap for American games versus Japanese games is fucking fascinating, and how he relates that back to language and stuff.
In the book, he puts QR codes, and then you can load them on your phone. And what he includes is small GIFs of him doing certain moves and certain things that relate to the book. And he has 3 GIFs, and it's him throwing a Hong Kong punch, an American punch, 4 Korean punch, and a Japanese punch, and they are completely different. And he had only learned the Hong Kong punch, and he had to learn the other kind of regions of choreography. And it's such an interesting read how he turned that into language. And sorry, I'm not trying to make this the Eric Jacobus podcast.
No,
but
it's cool.
Just he's a fascinating individual.
Is the Hong Kong punch fist vertical like Wing Chun?
And it's fast, it's snappy, right? Whereas like the Japanese pose afterwards, it's more of a performance. And then his Korean one is kind of more kind of street level, kind of less
haymaker-ish a little bit.
Yeah, less flowery, less. It's honestly, please read it, everyone. It's fun, but he loves. To tie it back, he does love Carl Scott.
Oh, cool. No, it's cool. You'll notice Bruce Lee does that a lot. Not every time, but especially his early ones, his punches have not the Western boxing style where it turns over, where your palms down. He often does that Wing Chun.
You think that's a choice to coincide with Bruceploitation, or do you think that's just a Bruce Lee choice?
I'd imagine it's him, because when I was doing research, I did a short on who's Bruce Lee to people that don't know, and I was going into it. And he learned gymnastics and martial arts, and he wanted to teach physical education. Okay. So his, I think it's more his, because a lot of the gymnastics is Bruce Lee. Sometimes I can tell a cut where I think it's not Bruce Lee.
There's only one for that I saw anyway. That was the multiple spinning kind of somersaults.
It just doesn't. Yeah, there's.
You know who did that, right?
Who?
Yun Biao was on set.
I didn't know that. I was
okay.
Oh, you didn't see him? He's one of the fighters in the tournament.
I didn't clock him.
I'll tell you what. I don't.
It was the worst quality.
Oh my gosh,
easily the worst quality.
I watched it twice. I watched it again this morning, and I'll get to my take on because I just had such a
great time.
We
kind of walked all over you a little bit.
Oh no, it's fine. I'll just jump into that now. I guess while we're there. So. For me, there was a place in Pittsburgh growing up called Farmore with a PH. It's kind of like a Kmart, or it has a drugstore section, but it had a rental section. And the famous, I'll probably bring this up a lot, but the move was my mom would go shopping for groceries, and I would just run into the video section, and in there, and you guys know the move, half of the fun was you look at all these things. Like I used to look at Clockwork Orange all the time, that when someone brought it up to me, I got like a weird like feeling, because that's cover scared me when I was 7 years old. I don't know why, it's not even like a horror thing, but I was like, oh my gosh. And that was like my version of a podcast before the movie. You talk about it with someone that saw it,
Yep.
So I was deep in that. I don't even know if they had a martial arts section, but this was called probably, if you could say, the most generic hodgepodge of like kung fu titles, Kung Fu Avengers. Like it's like, it's like, could you think of I don't think you get a more like generic, but it was called Kung Fu Avengers. It had Bruce Lee doing a punch from the movie, like a still shot.
Okay.
So and on the back it had Lo Mang like screaming with his abs just blown out, so I took that home, and I remember I loved the grittiness of it. I didn't know what I was getting into. I didn't read anything about it. And it got me so good, that one, when I was like, whatever, 8 or 9 years old, in that range. And I remember that, and I couldn't pinpoint it on the rewatch here, and I've seen it a few times since, obviously, but it got me like teary-eyed whenever Carl Scott was talking. I think there might be a missing section too, because as you guys saw this version, this is another reason I'm pretty sure it wasn't on Game of Clones Part 1, because my gosh, it is hodgepodge from like 10 versions. It goes to the VHS and then it's all over. But there's a scene where Carl Scott is talking about, there's massive racism overtones in this, and anti-racism and everything. So there was a moment he was talking about that. He's like, oh, I lost my job. And when I was young, it got me emotional. And I remember to this day, that was one of the most emotional things I ever felt from a Kung Fu movie, you know? And that like stuck with me. I was like, wow, that got me. Just him just like being the underdog and losing his job and them protecting him. It gave like even more of a camaraderie. One of my biggest camaraderie moments, it hit me like a freight train when I was young, was that I called it Mortal Kombat because that was the name we knew, but Crippled Avengers, when they team up in that little blacksmith, and they're helping each other and he helps them. I was like, I don't know, it just got me so good. And I felt that in this, because they're like helping each other so much. So I love that. I love the grittiness of it. I'm leaning more towards, I want to get more into this. It's kind of like they use all the same backdrops. They end up at a rock quarry, or they end up at this, whatever that industrial, whatever they're called, what would you call those things? Those big industrial carriers, you know what I mean? The freight
things.
Yes, whatever those
like
are.
Freight containers. Yeah, shipping container, whatever. Yeah,
the shipping containers. I saw that that's in so many of these movies. There's so many hallmarks. I think they use a lot of the same sets. And I just love that, because I
don't know if that was a set. I just felt like they went to the docks.
Right. I guess same locales. I mean, like a lot of the same locales. But for living in Shaw Brothers for so long, you get comfortable there. It's great getting there. But whenever I go to, hold on one second. Did you write me something, Shaun, by the way?
Sorry. Yeah. No, I wasn't interrupting or anything. I was just putting in the private chat. I found an eBay auction for Kung Fu Avengers on VHS.
Oh,
so
killer.
I thought I'd just post a picture. I know obviously the listeners can't. You can find this on eBay, everyone listening. Just go and put Kung Fu Avengers. And if you want to see the cover that Jason is actually referring to, it actually pops up and you can. Is that the one, Jason? If you
yes, that is the one. That is.
Yeah, I just thought I'd find a pic because I was interested. I was like, Kung Fu Avengers. I've never heard of it like that, and that's a great cover. That's a great VHS.
And you can see why that grabbed me when I was young.
Yes. Sorry, I didn't want to walk all over you, but I just wanted to throw that in.
Oh, no problem. I was in full screen. I saw this little thing pop up. I was like,
yeah.
I thought you were saying.
No, you don't have to edit this out or anything, but it was just fun to look at, I thought.
Yeah, I thought you were saying, Jason, you've been muted for 1 minute straight here.
No.
But yeah, so that, I just loved it. And I love like getting away from the Shaw Brothers for how much I love living in that world and watching them. When you get outside and you get into all these Bruceploitations, I think that's what really drew me into these. And I love, it's like another, and you could see that in earlier Shaw Brothers, like the Delinquent, you'll get some of those ones, that are like in this same basher feeling to the locales and everything. But I just loved it. Lo Mang is amazing. I want us to do like a 10-minute straightaway. I want us later to dissect like why directors do such odd things with Lo Mang. Like he never has the normal Bruce Lee trajectory. Well, the Bruce Lee one's weird because he dies at the end too, due to the fact that in China they had to have him pay a punishment a lot, Yeah. But he doesn't have the Guok Choi. Like Guok Choi always makes it to the end. And I think Dragon you might have tapped onto because he was a little bit of an outsider.
And in that group, I think so. I mean, I don't know. I think partly just by the fact that he was the only one from Hong Kong. amongst that core group of actors. Like all the
Right.
other guys were from Taiwan, and I don't imagine that they would have been kind of ostracize him in any sort of way, shape, or form. But I think just from a pure point of view, I don't think he spoke Mandarin. Maybe he does now. And I don't know how well the other Venoms could speak Cantonese. I'm sure they had enough that they could kind of get by for doing the scenes, but I think that there was a little bit of a disconnect. And so it always felt to me, even when he's part of the team, he's always either the first to die or he rarely comes out of things well. You're right. And in almost every movie that he does.
But he has leading man all over him. Like,
I know.
100%.
He has star quality easily.
I know. And sometimes when I talk about Guok Choi and Chang Sheng are my favorite Venoms, Dragon, you'll agree with me on Guok Choi, but throw in Lo Mang, and I'm like, yeah, he's right. Lo Mang really is up there.
Mm-hmm. Poor Sun Chen. He's never anyone's favorite in the Venoms.
I do love him.
He's great.
He's also another one that's really, really good acting. What he does in in the Chinatown Kid is like really impressive, man. He's got like a pretty dark path there.
And he went on to have if you watch some of his TV stuff, he went on to have a bonkers career on TV. And some of the stuff he does on TV is wonderful. In terms of fight choreography, but he was never really appreciated. Or he's still not really appreciated to that level. Right. No one brings his name up.
He had a swan song period for the Swan Song of Shaw Brothers, that 83 to 85. Him and Chen Quan Tai have a ton of movies, like wuxia movies together. And I've not seen all of them, but there's a straightaway whenever I want to go, I want to look into 1984. It's always Chen Quan Tai and Sun Chen for some reason.
Yeah.
You know?
He really shined in a whole bunch of stuff, but just never managed to outshine the rest of the Venoms. Everyone, for me, my favorite Venom's Liu Feng. And
wow, that's cool.
I love Liu Feng, and people love, like you said, Guok Choi and etc. But no one ever mentions poor Sun Chen.
I think they're one of the rare kind of ensembles where almost there's a good argument to be made that they're all as kind of as strong as each other, just in slightly different ways, right?
Absolutely.
And that's kind of why it was such a perfect storm of them kind of coming together and making the movies that they did, because each of them individually are phenomenal, and you see them in other projects without, they still managed to shine. So it's not like they were only capable of doing excellent things when they were working together as a group, but they were all really very distinct. It was it's kind of like an amazing kung fu boy band where they all had very distinctive, Sporty Spice type kind of different, slightly different flavors to their choreography.
Sun Chen's kicking spice.
Yes. And all the fans called Chang Sheng Cutie Pie.
Cutie Pie.
Yeah.
And the thing to remember that kind of answers that question is that, and Guok Choi has said this in interviews, the fact, and Chang Che knew this, the fact that they were from that Taiwanese Peking opera style, the three of them, that they usually would have Sun Chen and Lo Mang get out of there by the end, so the three of them could put on their display. And I think Lo Mang is a tier up on the screen time, and Sun Chen definitely usually has the lowest, and they use him as the wild card. They bring him in to do in Crippled Avengers, kick the stomach, or But so what I will say though, so after loving the grittiness of it when I was young and getting that emotional feeling, in watching it, rewatching it, this is hands down one of my favorite kung fu movies of all time. I love every aspect of it. I love Lo Mang and Bruce Lee's chemistry together. I love the grindhouse nature of it. And I thought this before I even re-listened again last night when Dragon gave us the link of Quentin talking about this movie. There's that element, and you guys have got this, I think, on watching modern Kung Fu to an extent, but I think you've both said you've never seen an old school 70s one in the theater. Have you guys?
I see it in the next month.
Bruce Lee.
Next month, I go to watch Mystery of Chess Boxing in the theater.
Oh, killer.
Yeah, so exciting. I get to see that for the first time in the theater.
And you said Bruce Lee, Dragon?
Yeah. That's only since the 4K restorations we got to go and see Fist of Fury.
Yes, I saw Enter the Dragon.
Incredible.
Yeah. I'm not sure what type of theater that was, but when you go to, I went to Tarantino's, I mentioned it a few times, obviously, and I joked, I call it, that's my one time at band camp, from American Pie, as I said, but that was so life-changing. That gave me, I wouldn't say a second win, because I was always watching Kung Fu movies, but when I was in LA, I just moved there, and I saw that Shaw Timber ad mat. I was like, I'm living here for a month. It was incredible. And I mean, it was a lot, because sometimes I think those are always double headers, but he did a Lee So Nam triple header, and I couldn't make it because I had worked all day, and it's I'm in my late or mid 30s now at the time. And it's a battle of attrition to get through those. And he does like really interesting things. He does a horror movie night on Halloween, and it's 8 hours long, and no one knows what each movie's going to be. And you can bring like drinks and like blankets. So people go out for a smoke break and be like, what's going to be the next one? And then it'll be whatever, Hills Have Eyes or something. So,
Nice.
And people leave at like 5, 6 a.m. in the morning. That one I could maybe work my way up to, but long story short, I just was blown away that a lot of Shaw Brothers movies I thought were strong, seeing them in the audience reaction and what they react to and laugh at, and especially these Bruceploitation ones, when I got to those, it just gives you, I mean, people were like almost like standing ovation, and it elevates it to such a different level. That's what Soul Brothers of Kung Fu has in spades. I mean, I got goosebumps on this rewatch. Like those moments where Bruce Lee like holds those positions, I was just like, oh, that's one that would get because I didn't see this in the theater. I was like, oh, that's one that would get him crazy. I could feel it. And the pacing is perfect. The arc is perfect for me. And I love Lo Mang. It's interesting because his arc isn't like cartoonish in that it doesn't change on a dime. Even to like the very end, you could see him putting, it's like the gas and the brake on at the same time.
Yeah.
He's just like, oh, and he needs that money. And like, wow. That's so weird though with him and the bar girl. It's just funny because even though Bruce Lee is getting all that money and doing better, you almost kind of forget that he has the money. So Lo Mang comes in, he's like, I need $20,000. That scene is like, it's funny to watch because Bruce Lee's like, what? And then it just turns really fast. But I just love the choreography. Ku Fang is amazing in this. Sometimes you see Ku Fang, his acting is so good that you expect him to like jump to a stunt double, but no, he's legit. You know, sometimes it
Ku Fang's incredible.
So great in this. He's often can steal the show, but I think just the chemistry. I wish, like Chang Che did, I wish Lo Mang and Bruce Lee did like 8 movies together or 6 movies. I thought that would have been so cool because they just get along so great. Carl Scott, I mean, he would have been great too. And so that's my like feelings on it. I just love it to death. And I think we could then definitely discuss how Carl Scott plays into like the African-American community, how Quentin Tarantino talked about that. And there's a book called China Forever that I read that talks about, you know, how popular these movies were in the African-American communities. And Quentin Tarantino lived in the South Bay area. Like he lived near Torrance and stuff, and he would go to a lot of
his adopted father's black, right? Is the guy who mostly raised him?
I believe
really?
So. Yeah. I believe so. Because I know his father's an actor, and they don't get along. Like his dad later on,
the guy who actually like his mum's partner for most of the time when he was was really young. Was black, and so was taking him to basically all the kind of like the black cinemas and the black
screening. That's coming back to me. You're right.
Great.
And I think that's kind of why he's validated in a way through his career for the way that he uses the language that he does, and why like Samuel L. Jackson's always stood beside him and been like, this is coming from a place because he grew up around all of this and knows that type of cinema better than most of the people who were kind of there or right alongside him seeing those movies and is kind of more passionate and more engaged with it. So I think he's kind of given a bit of an N-word pass by most of the black community. I know there's a couple of people that rail against it a little bit. I don't think Spike Lee's super stoked, but most of the actual kind of actors that work with him, like they've never have anything other than positive stuff to say about him and how he kind of treats those characters, because it's always he always I think he kind of generally always treats the people that he's either talking about in films or he puts in his own films with sort of reverential respect, even if they're the villains, even if he basically kind of gives everybody an actual proper chance to bat, shall we say. He's kind of, I don't want to spin this off into a Tarantino episode.
Well, no, like, and that's what I was going to say though, is that like angle of it with the African-American theaters and everything really played into them making that alternate ending. Completely. And that's what I send. So people listening, there's 2 versions of this. If you haven't seen it, Carl Scott, one at the end, he's looking off into the sunset with Bruce Lee. And I have to remember, that's the theatrical American version. Yeah. And that was not though on my VHS tape. The one that was in the Chinese version, what I saw when I was young, but I don't remember this. Unfortunately, they hang Carl Scott at the end. Not by his neck, by his arms. I guess like you can't really tell, but it is definitely, I could see because of history and everything, be very offensive to certain communities and stuff. Mm-hmm. So in America too. So when it came to America, they did that different ending where Carl Scott and Bruce Lee are looking off and everything's okay.
The Rocky theme's playing. It's beautiful.
We got to touch on that too. But the other version is horrible. It's the exact same angle, same looking into the sunset. He's holding Carl Scott. passed away.
Yeah.
And I think what it was is these movies would uplift the communities, and I think that would just be too much of a downer note. And when I've listened to the Clones Cast, they were talking about how the Chinese culture would have seen that, and I think they're so used to deaths at the end of a lot of these movies too. I mean, their movies are so martyrish. It's almost, I think they probably were disappointed when the guy's guts weren't hanging out by the end, and he was like, dying, like standing up and everything. So I think that really was a culture change, and I think just to give that uplifting thing for the Americans to get out of the theater, yes, and it just was awesome.
But like for me, I prefer the Carl lives ending, because I kind of feel like it's not, and this is not just coming from a place of Western sensibilities, but purely in terms of what themes the movie's exploring.
Agreed.
It becomes basically like the brother who just shifts. So there's one brother who basically kind of falls from grace, but ultimately kind of Bruce Lee is able to kind of find a new brother.
Brotherhood triumphs at the end.
Completely.
Really,
But they're friends though, not brothers. Him and Lo Mang, correct?
No, but brothers in the colloquial term.
Would you say, Dragon?
Brothers in the friend sense.
Brotherhood.
Rather, yeah.
Of course, yeah. But sometimes in the synopsis or the translation, I was like, wait, are they actually brothers? But they don't really reference that.
No.
That's all brothers.
Exactly.
And kind of like the sort of, because it kind of broke the weird, because initially it starts as like this love triangle between the two guys and the kind of the female immigrant that comes in with her. I can't remember the name of that actress. But
how cool was that too? That's what I'm talking about. It brings a different element. You don't see.
You don't often see that at all. And it handled really well, and kind of like sometimes mischievously, where he's like hiding his clothes so he can sneak out on a date with her at the beginning, but then realizes that he's kind of not. Like, she's made her choice, right? So he kind of does the right thing that you would hope a friend would do in that situation, where he takes a back step, and then kind of tries to find his own path and ends up with somebody horrible for him. Like,
oh man, I know,
just like really bad influence. But then it's totally just love struck and kind of steered away, and ultimately sacrifices the friendship for this girl that doesn't really care about him anyway. She's sleeping with Ku Feng, who has better bedroom skills. He might think, which was a great line of dialogue, and Ku Feng's questioning her about who has the better kung fu. I think so. But when Carl Scott comes into the picture, he looks up to Bruce Lee in a way that I don't think there's ever even a second that you feel, even when he's dancing with a girl, you never feel that he's trying to sliding into her DMs to try and steer her away, right? It's not that at all. He's just basically a friend in that group, right?
Yeah.
And so it was, I think it's a much more natural ending for me to have him survive. And this is like the Rocky theme in this movie. Hits so fucking hard, like that's
it's incredible
of music, right? But it's really like it's the most perfect needle drop. There's a couple from James Bond as well, a couple of places. I think there's a couple from Carrie, but it's the Rocky ones that really work the best. It's like that's
the funny thing is it fits so well, but they sometimes use it at the wrong part. Like the main theme, and I think it ends on this note. You guys know. It's like the symphonies. Dun, 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 dun. I think that's when Sly goes up at the statue. The opening credits have that, and there's not much going on. They're just like, it's kind of like off sync with what's happening. We're trying to get into the movie, and it's like the most triumphant. Like, I think the guys are just like kind of like, okay, we're throwing this here. It's like, but I guess when I was young, when I was 8, I had seen the Rockies, most of them, but I want to get. It's funny you mentioned that eBay Kung Fu Avengers. Sean, I'm happy you mentioned that, because I have that when I was trying to look at the cover, I have that on my watch list on eBay. I'm going to grab that.
Oh, really?
And I still have a VCR, so I want to see if I'm pretty sure the Rocky would be on that. But this movie, you could tell there's with the different versions, this feels very hodgepodge, and I actually have a gut feeling that it might not even make it onto Game of Clones Part 2. We'll have to see, but this is giving me the vibe of. The end of reels where they disintegrate and then it gets really bad and the new reel looks fresh. I think these got so bad is why they had to go to the VHS on our copy we were watching, because it goes to 4:3 because and like Dragon said that that scene in the whatever the tournament. Oh my gosh, I couldn't even make out who the guys were half the time.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
It's got a weird red cast over the whole thing.
Oh, the red scene is ridiculous. I mean, it's unbelievable. You can't see a damn thing.
That's not like a stylistic choice, right? No. I think that's just a quality of the transfer.
Degradation, yeah.
Well, no, it's also too. Well, it's also too. They're like in a room the size of an apartment sometimes on that, and they use stock footage of the audience, so they do make the lighting. You can't see anyone in the black in the background.
Yeah, because in the tournament we have Yun Biao, Corey Yun, and Chang Tao as well, all three fighters. And by the way, for those that don't know, haven't seen the film, the cast in this film is absolutely stacked. I mean, with Kung Fu stars or Hong Kong cinema stars, you've got. I think I've got a list here actually. So the ones I recognize, you've got Li Hoi Sang, Chang Tao, Peter Chan's in there, Xu Xia, who we mentioned earlier, Yun Chu Yang, Yun Biao, and Corey Yun were the ones that I spotted. But I'm sure there's even more in there. Absolute stacked cast, but that's what you find with Bruceploitation sometimes, that Li Hoi Sang and Ku Feng pop up in every Bruceploitation. I think Ku Feng has it in his contract that he has to have a sex scene in every Bruceploitation film.
Of all people too. Like I mean Lo Mang has a small one too. That's not bad, but like Ku Feng. What's that other movie with him we watched on our Bruceploitation chat? It was one where he's going crazy. He's like rabbit. His eye. It's Bruce and the Iron Finger.
Iron Finger.
Yeah.
And we have to. I almost want to do like a Hallmark check. This hits every hallmark of not just Bruceploitation. I mean, we have the tournament with the blacked out background. We have. In Chang Tao, I just want to double check. He's in like almost every Bruceploitation.
Everything, right? All of them.
And very mediocre sometimes on his choreography. You notice that?
Yes. The funny thing is, Chang Tao is very interesting because if you get him in like a 1974 basher, he will tear that up. Get him in a 1978, 77 like Shapes film, he stumbles a little bit and he looks a bit clunky.
Maybe he had an injury or something. Maybe. So we have Chang Tao. I'm trying to think of we have the freight outdoor area. Doesn't have the rock quarry, which is in like a ton of them, but it has, and then I love that trifecta. Li Hoi Sang, he's in a ton of these. It just hits at like every mark. And when Ku Feng assembles those three of them, I think it's such a great moment. It's like gives that video game. Now we have to go through these guys.
Yes.
Oh man, this movie just hits so many marks. I will say that I think the Lo Mang showdown is a little anticlimactic. It's a little short. It maybe feels edited or something.
Yeah, tiny bit.
It feels like they rushed it because you guys know in scenes, there's sometimes the guy can be like chopped to pieces and he's still like, I'm still here. Yeah. He kicks him like kind of hard and he's like, oh my God, Lo Mang died from that kick. It's like kind of like, you know.
But I sort of went with it partly because it was such a reluctant fight. Like I kind of didn't. It sort of breaks your heart a little bit when it happens. You don't really. It's not going to be an enjoyable sequence. Like I don't really want to see Lo Mang kind of losing and getting taken down because I kind of don't really want them fighting anyway. Like in some ways it would have been. I think it had to happen narratively, but in a way it would have been more satisfying if we'd been able to sort of talk him round or like hit him a couple of times and make him realize like she's sleeping with that other dude, man. Like,
she's a bar girl.
Give this up, right? In terms of like, why are you such a gambling fuck? Stop. And just try and talk him back off the ledge, right? So I think the fact that he just dispatched him pretty quickly, because also by that point he'd come back from his injury, because there's a whole third or second going into third act where
we got to tap on that,
knocked out of the game completely, and then has to kind of come back through sheer Batman level determination.
Well, that's what they should have had the Rocky
Iron Finger technique, which is
I had in my mind. No, that's the other hallmark. This is a famous Bruceploitation trope that came, who knows, like in one movie.
It's
in one movie, they just said, I think it's one of the first Bruceploitation movies. It's Bruce's Deadly Fingers or Bruce's Fingers. They just said there's some book that Bruce Lee had that teaches this finger move, and it just infiltrated Bruce and the Iron Finger. And it's so funny. And this one takes it to the nth degree because like that's his like. It just he takes them all out with that.
It's a secret weapon.
The training is hysterical with a little boop boop and all these weird.
Oh my God, that's brilliant! I laugh out loud.
And that brings us to the other trope. A thing that Bruce Lee kind of did was these electronics and odd training apparatuses.
Yes.
They love to put that in all these movies too. I mean, this one hits every mark.
So nunchucks.
Funny. Oh yes.
Another thing you have to hit in Bruceploitation. You have to get out the nunchuck.
And Bruce Lee is excellent with it.
He really is.
I love that middle section because the movie's going along. It's like, la da da, we're buying a ring. And, and that's an interesting scene where Lo Mang switches the rings. And it's like kind of lighthearted for a while. Then it just goes 0 to 1,000,000. I mean, has a horrible, almost rape scene.
Switch. Yeah, it's
like good. Almost to the rape scene. I'm not sure if it like fully gets it stopped. Thankfully, I mean, it's like brutal. And she cuts his face and her getting killed, I thought she might have survived. It's kind of odd when she gets hit by the car. It's not too brutal looking.
I think they just fuck up that stunt. I think it's meant to look brutal, but
well, I know it's kind of like hey, stand here, like, and they just drove by and then she rolled on the ground or something. Like
maybe they attempt to stack the shot so it looks like the car hit her, but it looks like it drives past her and she just falls over.
Right.
Not great.
Oh, and then Bruce Lee's like a man possessed, and Lo Mang is every stereotypical vice you could ever have, like Dragon mentioned, from bar girl to just the worst type of gambling where some guy's walking up like, I'll front you $10,000 trying to lure him in. And in the synopsis, that's interesting. They said triads because I didn't think it was that established, but I guess it was probably part of that. It seemed kind of loosey. Like it seems like Kufang had like a Sopranos. Well, I guess that's pretty high up in the mafia though. But yeah, it's interesting how that all worked out, that ending there.
Yeah, I think the fascinating thing with this film as well is that, it has, themes of brotherhood. It has a relatively serious plot and multiple kind of arcs for every character. It has a pretty heavy, as we refer to it, rape scene, or potential rape scene, and it has like a massive tonal shift. But the one thing that really stands out about this film, that despite all these serious notes, it's fun as hell.
Oh, I know.
The film is so fun. Like, yes, it has serious beats and it has like tonal shifts that are like very jarring. Rightfully so. I think it works great. But I just think it's so much fun. And I'm not just saying it's fun because of, the dub track or what, although the dub does have some serious moments or hilarious moments, I should say. But I think it's just overall, it's such a well-balanced film.
Oh,
I think so many kung fu films don't quite nail that, where a lot of, especially the older ones, 77, 76, 75, they go for this serious tone and then they lose the fun aspect. It's very dour, very grimy, very serious, or self-serious even, and you kind of lose that fun of the whole kung fu genre in a few of them. This one, it manages to capture everything. It's serious, but you will have an absolute boatload of fun with this film. Absolutely. And that's the magic of it.
And the snappiness of it. I would just, going off what you were saying, for how much I love the Venoms, we all love the Venoms. One of their like errors I think they make in some of their movies is, in some kung fu movies like A Cardinal Sin, is I think show me the plot. That's what I think. I want to like teach me and show me and let it unravel. If you watch Two Champions of Shaolin, or if you watch Spearman of Death, or Flag of Iron, they want to tell you it. So the two guys will sit there at the beginning, like the opening, they talk for like almost 8 minutes straight. And that isn't great in these grindhouse environments. Or if you just want to have a fun popcorn blast,
exactly,
it'll pick up and be amazing. But it's like the opening of Flag of Iron. Like they're trying to talk so much over, but I'll be the chief, and then you'll be the chief, and we'll do this and that. It's like, oh my gosh, guys, it's going on forever. And sometimes, like Lu Fang in those exposition parts can be kind of flat-faced, and it's just like you start to glaze over a little bit. Like he's kind of like not much expression to him,
Yeah.
So I think this is great. Like they don't need to teach you some elaborate plot and and everything. It's just we're off running.
It's funny you say that. I don't think they mean this, but it's what I kind of extrapolated from it. Is that there's a bit at the start, literally the first scene in the film, almost makes fun of a character for the we prefer to show not tell thing, because for those that haven't seen it, the film starts and you've got two men just floating on a boat. They are hungry, thirsty, and they are just floating on a boat, and the opening line is, "Where are we?" And Bruce Lee just goes, "At sea." As if like we don't know that. It's like, no shit, you're at sea. It's like, exactly. I love the fact that kind of betrays the whole, what's the point of me telling you, look around, there's fucking water everywhere, we're at sea, dickhead.
Exactly.
I just think that's like I know obviously they don't mean to do that, but I love the fact that it's just like, yeah, look at the screen. You're
for sure.
Yeah,
they're probably also giving them a little bit like they're like Tom Hanks in Castaway. Like she's so delirious that she probably needs to be told that a bit.
Maybe,
maybe. Because Lomang's, but no, I know what you mean. It's kind of like, could you be more obvious?
Yes, exactly. Could you be more obvious? Yeah, that's exactly what I'm trying to say.
And we'll finally get like a Mandarin version. It'll say, "Oh, it'll be a thing they won't even say." I'd say
exactly. It's with a bunch of things. I want to know what is said during the watermelon moment. When she brings in a fresh, delicious, tasty watermelon and he smashes it with nunchucks and he goes, "It's okay, I've got a job." So what are you talking about? She just bought you a watermelon. What do you mean it doesn't matter? You've got a job. Like, it was a gift.
Exactly.
Well, I don't think he set out to smash it. He was just like smashing whatever Carl threw in his path.
It's the following line that really makes me laugh. Yeah. It's okay, I've got a job. It's like, well, yeah, I know, but if I bought my wife a ring and she just threw it in the toilet and went, "It's okay, I've got a job," I'd be like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
I know. She gets a bit of a rough, like a kind of rough. A rough ride in this movie.
Yeah, a little bit
across the whole thing. Really, it's kind of she sort of tries to be the moral center and tries to kind of keep him on the straight and narrow in a way that's not really very naggy, even in the overdub. Because I think that'll probably play even more sympathetically if you actually heard it in Mandarin. But she had a bit of a hard pass. And one thing I've got to mention before we forget, because we didn't mention it when we were speaking about the training dubbing and what that ultimately led into, was the incredible internal bleeding shot that you see.
Oh my god!
In that last fight, which
it's magical,
like a direct response to Sonny Chiba's Street Fighter, right?
It has to be, right? And maybe even if I can kind of really stretch that, maybe it's an answer to kind of the Italian gore films that are around that time. That things in general in exploitation cinema were getting probably gorier. What with your Lucio Fulcis and your other Italian horror directors. I wonder if they just kind of tapped into that exploitation violence thing that was going on. But it works.
Really well done.
Oh, it's incredible.
And kind of ups the ante from what we see, because in Street Fighter it's an X-ray, right?
Yes, yes.
But this is kind of like almost like the only other place I can remember seeing it this graphically was in, and this is a big tangent, but in Three Kings, which came a lot later, and then when George Clooney's describing the bullet hit and what happens when a bullet hits you, and you kind of see an internal shot of the bullet striking into all the bile and stuff being produced. It's like one of the cooler shots in that movie. But yeah, it was kind of. I always kind of sometimes like the graphic nature of seeing these little moments. It kind of captures your imagination in a way. Well, it doesn't capture your imagination; it flat out shows you.
It's almost like a doctor open heart surgery.
Yeah.
Talk about show and not tell. I mean, his fingers are in his heart.
And what's interesting is the feeling you get at that moment, because I often reference that book that I was reading at the same time, the Rick Myers From Bruce Lee to the Ninjas. His first line in the book is, "What does Kung Fu movies do for people, or what does it do for us?" It says, or what is the feeling? I don't remember the opening that says exhilaration. And I was so young, I actually didn't need to go get a dictionary. He was teaching me. I was like, okay, that's the word I need. That's what I'm feeling. That's what this is all about.
Exhilarated.
Yes. And that's what this movie gives. And at that end moment, it's kind of like a mixture of, I guess that's what exhilaration kind of has also in its nuances, is that you feel like you want to laugh. Like you feel the excitement. That moment when it's all coming together, you have the revenge, the seriousness, you have the funniness of all the weird finger techniques. You have Ku Feng making the funniest faces and all the weird blood. It's just such a great, mix of everything.
It's the magic. It's the magic of Kung Fu cinema. Like when we talk about that, when we talk about these films and the like you say, the exhilaration they can give us, and I think that's a great word. And I think if you're entrenched in the martial arts cinema genre, especially the old school stuff, like I keep talking about it, there's a sense of magic that they bring. There's this overwhelming like delight that if you, and I don't mean, again, I say this, and I don't mean to sound pretentious, but if you get old school Kung Fu films, if you understand like, oh, this genre works for me, then the magic that comes from it is never ending. And just that scene is just a perfect embodiment of the magic that you can get from Kung Fu films that you may not get from other films.
Completely. And I think it's weird. Kung Fu, in a way, And you see this with science fiction too, where it's when it's at its very best, it's kind of scooping up a whole bunch of different tropes and different themes and different techniques that are used in completely different types of genre of cinema, right? And like science fiction, when it's at its best, I mean, I can always remember Ridley Scott speaking about the first Alien and speaking about how he kind of basically wanted it to be a horror movie and he wanted it to be a thriller. He wanted it to be a lot of other things as well as just a great science fiction movie. And Kung Fu, when it's at its best, does that too. Like kind of some of the Venom Mobs movies, and even just the Five Venoms itself, kind of works as like this sort of procedural detective crime thriller, like investigation. Or it could have almost be like a Sherlock Holmesian type mystery story. And in Soul Brothers, there's so much going on where we do get a little bit of a thriller, we get a little bit of romantic comedy, we get so many beats. There's a couple of even little kind of horror moments in there too, and I think it balances them all so well. Yeah, completely, totally. And kind of brings it all together. So I always a bit dismayed when people just write off Kung Fu movies as if they're all one thing, because they're so kind
couldn't agree more.
Different areas so often, and wonderfully so here.
Shaun, when you were saying like the get it factor, it's funny. It just waved over me watching this because I have seen this. It just had been a while. If I have to say, it felt like medicine to me. I mean, I was like stressed from work, thinking of bills, and it's like, okay, you just don't know. You know, you're trying to unwind, and like I shut off my phone. I get no distractions. I'm in the mode, and it was like coming home. I mean, it hit me really good on this rewatch, and it felt so. I was so in every moment, and it just felt so good. And then like honestly, my whole body chemistry kind of changed. I just like went down a gear, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm in this world, and it's so great. You know, I love it.
Isn't it great that it can do that? And I think I think it's almost unfair that we call this genre kung fu films, because usually there's so much more to them, and almost we're doing them a disservice. Like Dragon said, you know, sometimes they have thriller, crime, horror, whatever, fantasy, sci-fi, whatever, and it's almost sometimes we're unfair calling Once Upon a Time in China just a kung fu movie. There's so much more to it than that. Like it's this beautiful kind of heroic tale, kind of drama and all sorts. I don't know,
epic,
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, epic, exactly. I think sometimes we do them a disservice, but you know, it's a colloquialism we use just because they have kung fu in them.
It's funny how when it works, like we're talking about how Five Venoms, which is often cited as not having as much kung fu, but when it works so good, sometimes it's not that you forget it's a kung fu movie. It's that on this, it has such nice sprinkles of training, short bursts, and kung fu just throughout. So it's like almost like two parallels. So you have a good movie with a good plot with the two of them, you know, they're the chemistry of Lo Mang and Bruce Lai, and the chemistry of the three of them, the plot and everything. And then you're like, oh wait, and some of those kung fu scenes are excellent when they're, you know, there's training, teaching. You have the like Mr. Miyagi element where Ku Fang is teaching the Cobra Kai version of the defense. You know, it's like funny how it's the complete opposite, where Bruce Lai is, you know, always think defense, and it goes to Ku Fang, and they're really every line's like, no, you can have aggressive. Well, he's like, you can have aggressive defense, but that's the only type. It's like, you know, it's funny. And this one dives into it's able to have that so bad it's good element a little bit, but it's also so good it's good too. It's like kind of weird that it dances in both worlds. It doesn't have the so bad it's good like there's some obvious dummy or anything, but it's just, I guess what it is, it's using the skeleton of a lot of Bruceploitation movies that don't elevate up to this moment. It has all those locales, it has the hallmarks, but sometimes it doesn't hit the mark. There has to be 40 Bruceploitation movies that have those nightclub scenes, or that, you know, the nightclub, you know, it's just like so many of the tropes, as we say. But this, everything works so well. And what it is like we were talking about how in the Game of Clones Part 1, some of the Bruceploitation movies like Cameroon Connection, I had mentioned before, if they had the lead actor just study Kung Fu, it would have been so much better, you know? And so this scratches that itch of like awesome Kung Fu, awesome training. And like I said, has all that great chemistry of everyone with a good plot and a crescendo Rocky-esque Rocky music finale.
We really can't undervalue the plot and the sort of script writing for what it is. And I think, again, people always bag on Kung Fu cinema as kind of being not even written at all, like they're almost making it up as they go along. But every single action sequence in this is so kind of intrinsically linked to character and story that none of it ever feels forced. And there's huge stakes to some of them, to the point where you're so invested in some, like particularly in the kind of rape scenes, maybe one of the most extreme examples, because that's really fraught, and you're kind of like, you're desperately wanting Bruce Lee to be able to kind of like go and be able to help her, right? And there's a massive amount of relief when she's kind of able to save herself from the situation, and then a tragic end to that. But even in the training sequences, none of it ever feels like it's just being forced in for the sake of, okay, we need another action beat here.
No.
It's always linked into the kind of where the characters are at that point in the story. And kind of like, while they kind of initially bring Carl in is to help him protect himself better, because they've kind of intervened to stop him from being beaten up at the beginning. And there's a sort of such a righteous kind of like cause that they're pushing for, and it evolves really naturally into this genuine friendship. It's not just like, it's a kind of a master-student relationship that's quite unlike a lot of the other ones where you see where there's a really distinct separation between master and student.
Yeah,
but they're really presented very quickly as kind of being on equal terms as friends.
It's brotherhood, right? That's
completely,
what
100%.
The early, I guess we can call it a training sequence, even though it kind of is something else. But the early sequence with Bruce Lee and Carl Scott, he gives him the pole, and they have a bit of fun with the training. Yeah. That whole scene, yes, it's a kung fu training sequence, and yes, you can enjoy it for what it is, but it's solidifying the early brotherhood between these characters and developing it. Hey, these two have a connection. Look at how they do this. Look at how they are developing this friendship. And so often in kung fu movies, you don't get that. You get a training sequence, which is just, hey, look at this kung fu. Look, we're going to throw it in. It's amazing. But this really, like you said, is intrinsic to the actual plot and characters, and that's a nice little addition that you don't often find in kung fu movies. And I think to make matters even kind of more depressing is that people look at kung fu films and go, this has no substance, this has no worth, you just watch it for the fights, etc., etc. And then with this film, we go even one step lower, that people go, oh, fucking hell, this is Bruceploitation. That's definitely got no worth to it. That's exploitation cinema. That's an absolute mess. It's going to be laugh out loud, dumb. I was like, no. Granted, we've discussed whether this is a full-blown Bruceploitation or not, but, this film has so much going for it, and I implore anyone listening that hasn't seen it, and if you are, in your head, if you have any criticism for the Bruceploitation genre, just give this one a go. If you've never seen any Bruceploitation, just sit down and watch this one, and it may, I'm not saying it will, but it may very well change your mind on how you approach Bruceploitation. And then if you want to take this director, who's called Shaun, he did this film, and then if you want really him to go balls to the walls Bruceploitation, then he made Dynamo later on, which is very
my all-time favorite.
Exactly, Dynamo's maybe the best, but he really goes like, it's like this one. He was kind of toying with Bruceploitation, and he was like, "How much can I sprinkle in here?" And then someone said, "Did you know that you can just go fucking mental?" And he went, "Oh, I'll make Dynamo then." Okay, this director also has a tendency to kind of go to interesting places with cinema, because he directed Super Inframan, which is I love that film more than that's honestly in my top 10 Shaw films. I love that film. And then
Bruce Lee is in that too. Bruce Lee,
yes, he is. That's an interesting connection there. There's a Bruceploitation connection. And then he did like Portrait in Crystal, which I haven't watched yet. I've got it on Blu-ray, but I haven't watched it yet. I just picked up that. And then he did Sun Dragon and Bloody Parrot, which is a wild film. And I love the fact that he often goes kind of to the extreme, but he occasionally goes back to his, I won't call them his roots, but he goes back to that traditional old school Kung Fu, because I think in 70, I'm going to take a swing at this, I could be wrong. I think in 79, he made, with Billy Chong, he made Crystal Fist. Which, in my opinion, is one of the most definitive Kung Fu films. It's fantastic. And I think he just occasionally dabbles in like super old school, traditional, standard Kung Fu stuff. And then occasionally he goes, no, I want to make something crazy this time. So I'm going to make, whatever it is, Super Inframan, for example. But I think he's a very, very talented director. And I think it's bizarre that no one really talks about him.
He's super underrated. And even when he's doing the kind of the more sort of traditional, and I'm doing that inverted commas thing for our listeners who can't see, he still puts his own kind of little slant on it. There's kind of one of my favorite Shaw's movies that he did from the later end of the cycle, He did Tales of a Eunuch in 1983, which I absolutely love. It's awesome.
Is that Gordon Liu in that one?
Yeah, it's Gordon Liu and Wong Yu.
Yes.
Ku Feng, and it's so good, and it's one of the ones that's as satisfying for the story that's going on as it is for the action that's kind of in place. And there's an awful lot of like subterfuge with Wong Yu kind of sneaking into a palace and sort of pretending to be somebody out that he shouldn't be, and then being very, very sneaky and kind of going up against Ku Feng, who's blind. But it's an incredible movie. It's one
we got to start bookmarking these for potential future ones, like Crystal Fist and stuff.
That's one I'm still holding out hope for, like Shaun or Arrow or somebody to pick up, because Tales of Eunuch desperately needs a
and I haven't seen that one in 30 years, maybe 20 years, 30 or 25 years. I haven't seen that one in so long.
One of the few shows I have the original Hong Kong poster for. I'd absolutely love that movie.
Oh, really?
Cool. Yeah.
That's amazing. He also did the Flying Guillotine Part 2.
He did,
which is it's actually very underrated. People don't talk about that film enough. It's actually very good. But it's interesting. I always love the fact that you can always find a director in Hong Kong that has done, like, I won't call it prestige Shaw stuff, but very, very, very decent and very, very good Shaw stuff. And then they've done like this Bruceploitation film with Ku Feng just having a sex scene and just wild heart being stabbed by fingers. And you're like, what the hell? Like, how have you gone from that to this? Like, it's crazy, but that's the way Hong Kong cinema works.
I hope that this can, like I said, because there's all these cut versions, I had to send you guys a couple scenes to like make sense of it. I start losing track. Like, there's a sex scene that's not in the version that we watched that is not in it, but them talking about Lo Mang, it's not even in that when they're talking about his like bedroom skills versus, I don't even think that's in there. It's just a massage scene that you see her face for a moment and you have to put together that that's the girl Lo Mang. It's such a so the version that's on Wu-Tang, and there's the main version that's kind of hodgepodged from different cuts, like a VHS. It doesn't have the sex scene. All it has is maybe her massaging, and they roll over in bed and you see her face and you're going, oh, they're together. And man, Lo Mang's really like down and out if he finds out about this. Then it's called the True Uncut, something like that. I sent you guys the links, True Uncut, and it's in 10 parts. So I kind of went through that. I found the sex scene. Then it has the ending where Carl Scott lives. So it's interesting. So I would love to see if they could just find some print in the wild. Who knows? Maybe Michael Wirth and Frank are on it right now. But if they could just get that in some rich guy's like attic that he's just holding and he doesn't know what he has or something, just pristine with it. Even if it's the dub, which is great, that would be like a crowning jewel, I believe, for the Game of Clones Part 2. You know, and
confirmed they're doing Dynamo on it, right? Dynamo is going to be one of the ones that's included, I think.
No, unless you did a slip up.
They put out that picture ages ago when they were first promoting, and they put a whole bunch of different pictures of different movies that were going to be included. Right. And a couple of them weren't on the first set, so kind of by a process of Sherlock Holmes introduction, I'm assuming that if they weren't on the first, they're going to be on the second. And Dynamo was one of the ones that they put.
Oh, okay. Because I know there was like my issue with I love the Pearl River release of Dynamo. I thought it was really solid. It was solid, but they put, and I had talked to Michael Wirth about this. I mentioned it to him saying I liked he had his own personal 16 millimeter Dynamo, which is the TV cut, like, edited. That's the extra. When you watch that, it's crisp. It looks like a nice, perfectly scanned. They did a DNR thing. What they didn't do this on the Game of Clones, thankfully. They tried to soften the main image of Dynamo, and it kind of I don't like it. It just looks like it's through a lens or through a filter. And he goes, sometimes the companies that do that, they try to make it look a little, softened or modern. And he said he preferred like the way they just raw scanned his with maybe a little bit of cleaning. So I do want, if that was on there, another scan, don't put on any of the DNR, don't soften it. That would be awesome, because this is definitely a sister film to that. And I feel
this is a perfect double bill. If folks are wanting to watch two,
this is
the most incredible.
If you want a good time with Bruceploitation, just watch this and Dynamo back to back.
Yeah.
Oh,
and then throw on Llama Avenger while you're at it. Why not?
Oh, there's a good. Yeah, when we had our conversation of you watching the 50 films, I had to ask you, so what came out on top? What was the one that and I think at that time you said Llama Avenger was probably your favorite.
I believe so. I believe so, yeah. I think now it's, I always get this wrong, and I hope I'm going to get it right. I believe it is Fist of Fury 2 that is my favorite.
Oh, that you're singing my because that's what
I could get this wrong. Which is the one where he fights at the end and the storm is going on?
Oh,
is
it's
that
Fist of
3
Fury
or
3.
2?
It's 3.
I love 3 then. Fist of Fury 3 is fantastic.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's almost like the 4. He has so many good ones. For the biopics, for people, Bruce Lee, the Man, the Myth is miles ahead of the biopics.
Yes.
Some of those are so bad you can barely, us watching them for the Game of Clones. It's interesting as like historically to see Bruce Lee's like career, but some of those it's painful to get through. Bruce Lee, the Man, the Myth is amazing. Llama Avengers so good, but up there, Fist of Fury 2, I will say, has a slower burn to it. It's not going to have this. I did see it at Tarantino's and the place loved it, but there are stretches where it has a Western feel.
Yeah.
It has like a Western vibe. But Fist of Fury 3, that ending, that's like peak Bruce Lee. He is just a perfect man. It's so good.
It's perfect.
I will say, and this is something I want to ask you guys about. So what directors do with Lo Mang is always just so strange. He can, like I said earlier in the episode, he can never just have this standard hero's journey straight away. He has turns. He has, he gets killed halfway through. My favorite Lo Mang performances, this is one of them. I love it. I think he has a lot of nuance in his change, and then I love Five Venoms. I think he's a highlight in that, that rage. And I love Five Elements Ninjas. I think that when with Senji, where she turns on him and he goes into that blind rage, and that's like Chang Chi's that's like peak raging Lo Mang. I mean, he goes forever. I'd love him in that.
That's his most earnest death, I think.
Yeah.
Five Element Ninjas is one where it's like, oh, this has meaning. That it's his death feels like epic in Five Element Ninjas.
Yeah, agreed.
Whereas in other films, it's just like, oh, there goes Lo Mang again.
In Killer Army, I think he's like almost like a hot dog on a stick. He spear him and like throw him behind this thing, and then when Guok Choi and them show up, he like crawls out and covered in blood. I'm like, man, they do not throw Lo Mang any love here. Like,
poor dude, he just pops up and gets killed. It's wild.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think, does he ever? The only Venom's movie, if I recall correctly, that he survives and walks away at the end is Crippled Avengers, right? Him and I'm trying to remember. Is it him and Lo Mang, I think, walk off at the end of Crippled Avengers?
Yes.
Him and Guok Choi.
That's what I meant. Him and Guok Choi. And then in Avenging Warriors of Shaolin, you watched that recently. I think he does survive to the end of that. And that's an interesting ending on that, because he actually fights with a weapon. He has it looks like a trident, but it almost looks more like a pitchfork a little bit, like an offshoot trident. And it's interesting because sometimes you put Lo Mang in a box with his Mantis style. You say, oh, he doesn't throw as many kicks. He doesn't do the spinning back like Bruce Lee and Bruce Lee type kicks. And you rarely ever see him with weapons outside of Daredevils with maybe some nunchucks.
Doesn't have he's got something in one of the Brave Archers, doesn't he?
It's been a while for me with Brave Archers.
There is some in there. He does do it, but when he does, it goes, wow, he's way more versatile and talented, and he has that star quality. I'm just trying to think.
A real charisma on screen.
Yeah. What movie, I'm trying to think, does he have does he have a standard hero role where he makes it all the way?
What happens to him in Chinatown Kid?
I'm trying to remember.
Or is he just a throw-in?
Okay, him and Guok Choi have the full body tattoos, I think, in that.
Yes,
right? They're the bad guys. I think they just get killed by
Fu Shang. They're just nothing.
And then Sun Chen dies. I think everyone dies in that.
Sun Chen ODs, doesn't he?
Right.
Oh, yeah.
But that also has the same thing as this, with very different endings.
Hugely.
Yeah.
What's Chinatown Kid on? Is that Shawscope?
Shawscope 1. It's on Shawscope 1.
Again. I love that film.
It's so good. It's interesting to watch that one because, like, Shaun, me and you often talk about this 77, 78, 79. I'm kind of like, I lean towards 78, 79's your like
79's my year, yep.
And it's funny when we both see a 77 that kind of gets there or doesn't get there. Chinatown Kid's right on that cusp.
Yes.
It's like it has some slower fight scenes where, and that one really is jarring because it's Shaw Brothers. They went ragtag to San Francisco, and I don't even think they had permits, and they shot this stuff. So when it gets to them, then they turn a corner and it's this beautifully like lit Shaw Brothers scene. It's like the most obvious cut.
Yes.
And they'll have one guy at like a booth selling like something, and the normal San Francisco is all like,
Yeah. It's a really solid film. Very different though. Chinatown Kid, and I
Yes.
appreciate that. It's different, like, take from Chang-Chi's usual stuff, and I think it's quite refreshing. Chinatown Kid.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was always fun seeing him do slightly more contemporary stuff. I still really love, although it's not a good example for Lo Meng because he's not in it, but I love Shanghai 13 a lot.
Oh man, that
kind of
film
just-
deserves more love.
I have to
It's so
see
good.
that again. I think since I've only seen that once, I have it on the, I believe, was it a terracotta release?
Yeah,
Yes,
they put
I
it on
have-
DVD.
I just haven't done a rewatch on it. I think that might be there's so many ones that'd be neat to, like, kind of, because that dances in the world. Whenever
That'd be
you
fun to do for this, actually.
Yes.
Shanghai 13 would be a great film to
Yes, because it has that, like, that's what I like watching about this. When you see Lo Mang, he's blazing smokes in this, like every scene, he's like lighting up cigarettes, and it's weird, you know what I mean? Because there's the other side of the Venoms, because I think Chang Sheng was like a major, like, smoker, and we know that he drank a lot.
Especially in Shanghai 13.
Yeah.
Every fight scene.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's funny. I can't remember. It was an interview or something that might have tapped into why Lo Mang also feels a lot different than the Venoms. Is I think some of them did live at the Shaw Brothers, like, training facility when they got there. They hung out together a lot, but I think Lo Mang, because of the language barrier, I think it also made a little more separation in the Venoms too.
Yeah.
You know, kind of
I think
like
he
just.
probably also had his own place to stay because he was from Hong Kong, so I don't know if he ever lived on.
Oh yeah, he wouldn't have probably not been there. But I think he did go through I think Chang-Chi, like his Chang-Chi's assistant, I'm not sure if it was Pao Su Lee, but one of them saw Lo Mang in, like, he was working and he was like
He was an accountant.
Yeah, and on break he would do Mantis, like, in the yard or something. Of course, we have to picture with the shirt off. You know? Like, how could he have a shirt on on lunch break? You know, but I think they saw him and told Chang-Chi. I remembered originally of Chang-Chi, like, watching it from some window or something. But Chang-Chi, like, brought him, and I think he did put him through the paces of, like,
he went through the training. Yeah,
right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and
I think
then
that was standard fare. Like, where I don't think you got to walk onto set until they'd put you through basically the sort of the training camp,
right,
just mostly to make sure that you didn't hurt yourself or anyone else.
Makes sense, really.
You kind of knew basically the score of what you were doing, and so that they could kind of see what you were physically capable of.
Yeah.
No, for sure. It would have been. Like I said, I would have loved to seen just a little more, like, buddy films with the two of them. It wouldn't have been on the same characters because of, you know, Lo Mang dying, but man, there's definitely some palpable chemistry between those two, you know, and with Carl Scott.
If you think about it, really, if you fashioned Lo Mang, if you were careful with him back then, he could have I could see him as a Bruceploitation actor, as someone that, like, takes on the Bruce mantle.
Oh yeah, I know what you mean.
He has the physique and he has the intensity, I think is the word I'm looking for, Lo Mang. Granted, he doesn't quite have the look, which is fair, but I could see him, you know, some of these Bruceploitation actors look nothing like Bruce Lee. So I think Lo Mang could have done a good Bruce.
It's also the haircut too, because if you watch a lot of the there's the two type of Venoms movies he's in. It's like the Baroque period, you know, where they have the sideburns, the hair back.
Yep.
Then there's, like, I call it the Beatles cut, like it's the Bruce Lee cut. You know, that's like yes, and Killer Army, and then but I think there's some where the other guys have the longer hair, but Lo Mang tends to always have that Bruce Lee type cut.
Yes.
You know, because I think only Brave Archers where he's going to have, like, he has a beard in that one.
He looks so good with a beard.
He's great with a beard. Does he have a beard in oh god, his small role in, is it Human Lanterns that he pops up for one fight?
Yes.
With the hooked tonfa, right? He has a beard in that, right?
And there's a third one, another one of those Sun Chen Quan Tai. He has, like, a hat and a beard. I can't remember the name of it. I posted one of the fight scenes, like, it's in that later period. And in Shang-Chi, this really feels so separate to go back to that from a Shaw Brothers movie. You know, it has such a different feeling to it. It just, overall, it doesn't have that, like, the good things of Shaw's might not be here, but it also has just, like, that magical thing of that mid-70s, like, almost Basher period.
Yeah, but it's wild to think he made this before Venoms, right?
Right before.
Oh, of course. That didn't even click in my head. Oh,
this is in that Chinatown Kid, which is kind of the birth of the Venoms, you know, in a way. It's like that sweep of 77. This came out late 77. And I can't remember the month on Venoms. I think it might be late 1978 almost. I don't know.
I'm not sure of the month.
I think before this, he'd only done Shaolin Temple, which is just really a cameo because he could put the chocolate bar on full display and get the abs to be on point. He did the Naval Commander.
Oh, that's your reference.
The Brave Archer, and then this.
Wow. I think it's safe to say that if you think about all three of the leads in this film, Lo Mang, Carl Scott, and Bruce Lee, I think it's safe to say that all three in their careers deserve more. I think they're three underutilized or let's say, developed actors in that, they all had their niche, I guess, meaning, Bruce Lee had Bruceploitation, Lo Mang had a short stint at Shaw Brothers, but they deserve much more after that. And Carl Scott, I mean, he deserved the world. He only made 4 films or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think all three of them, they deserve to do so much more, apparently as well, because Carl Scott was so young at the time. I mean, he deserved to go on and be an absolute legend. But yeah, I think I'm always fascinated by like foreign actors. That I don't know a lot about foreign actors that star in kung fu films, but I'm always fascinated by them, and especially the more skillful ones. Like if we're talking about African American actors in particular, Eugene Thomas is another one from like Ninja Final Duel and Super Ninja. And it's just fascinating. Also, you had that guy in this film, actually, who in HKMDB, his name is just Alexander. Have you seen him? And he's the white guy with the sideburns.
He's a rapist.
Yes, he is. Yes,
and that dude is so funny. It's like he's the token white guy, but he's just so weird. I mean,
wait a minute. No, sorry, I'm getting confused. The guy with the gloves is the rapist, isn't it? The guy with the craziest mustache. Different guy.
Well, in my mind, I think there's only one white guy in this movie. Pretty much.
Is that two? There's two, especially because you see them kind of. The guy with the crazy sideburns is there when they first attack Carl Scott at the dock. But when the rape.
Oh right, there's like the boss and stuff, but there's like the boss that starts the Carl Scott. The issue is he spills paint on that like boss's arm when he's walking, like in that starts the whole thing of them fighting Carl Scott. So yeah, there are a couple other white actors. But what I was saying though is the guy with the sideburns who almost rapes her, and then it's definitely that because he fights Bruce Lee in that yard.
There's another guy with crazy mustache or crazy sideburns. It's hard to keep track of the facial hair. Yeah, that's who I'm thinking of.
All right, that's him. That's Alexander. Sorry, listening.
That is definitely the rapist guy. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, that guy. He tends to turn up in a few. I'm looking at his filmography. Of course, he was in Fist of Fury with Bruce Lee. He's actually in that film, and he plays just quote unquote a foreign gunman. So he just turns up in that one.
He has the vest. He has the vest in that.
Yeah, and he's in Fist of Unicorn, The Dragon Lives Again, Last Strike. He's in Chinatown Kid, The Dragon on Fire, Edge of Fury, The Tattoo Connection. He pops up again, The Dragon, the Hero. Yeah, he pops up in everything.
Him in that too. Yeah, in the outdoor scene.
Then he went on to work specifically with Carl Scott in Crystal Fist and Sun Dragon, or with this same director again, I guess. And he was also in the Clones of Bruce Lee. So yeah, lots of crossover with the Bruceploitation genre. Lots of crossover, but I think that's part of the fun of the genre. That is, I've seen him in 25 other Bruceploitation films. You probably say that about Lee Hoi-sang. He pops up in all of them.
Oh, yeah. When you're talking about Bruce Lee, or actually all three of these actors, how they could have done more, would have loved to have seen it. Bruce Lee's story is so, the end of it, I heard the behind the scenes where some of the producers, they held a knife up to his throat and they said, like, you're going to be Bruce Lee on the poster. And they forced him again and again. He was trying to break away. And you saw like Iron Dragon Strikes Back, Gold Connection. That's why I call this lower mid Bruceploitations with the Bruceisms. That's like zero, complete zero. Yeah. And that's real grimy. I do enjoy that one. But when it gets to the very end, he kind of does his he sums up his career and directs The Chinese Stuntman, which is amazing with Dan Inosanto. So, I really love that one.
I don't like that final
fight. You don't?
With them, though.
No. Oh, where they're like, you mean that stunt going through the walls like the Kool-Aid Man and stuff?
Like the hotel room. Is it hotel room that they fight in, or is that not the final fight?
I'm sorry. No, there's a final fight when him versus the stuntman. They fall out. There's a very ending. Right before the end is the Dan Inosanto one.
I hate that fight.
Why? Because I think Dan's like there's some good weapon work in that.
But it's so chaotic as well. They're just throwing TVs and fucking couches and stuff at each other. It's too much. I just want them to like bust out some shapes, but it's a little chaotic for me.
They're very cramped in there. Like if you almost want a dojo to have like you want the Heroes of the East, like his little
exactly. That's exactly what I want. Yeah.
But what I was going to say is that's him summing up his career, and he was done. He did one other one. It's like Dragon Force, I believe, something like that. No, it's a band. Something like that. It's I was going to say Dragon Lord, but that's Jackie Chan.
You're right. It's Dragon Force.
Okay, Dragon Force. Because you know the band Dragon Force, they're like the fastest. Like, So, and then he did like maybe appeared in one other thing, and he was over. But the sad thing is, you could see the stress on Bruce Lee. He ages very like from 78, 79. There, he suddenly has like bags under his eyes. He looks really like stressed and like he looks.
Didn't his wife pass away, and he ended up having to look after the...
That was in 1990 later on. That's when he really ended, because he did, I guess, some TV appearances and some... I only know this like offhand so much is because I was researching to do that. I did that short about his life. And so when his wife died in 1990, he just was... That's when he was fully done. But so I think 85 is when he really wrapped up appearing in movies, and his final starring, I think, was that Dragon Force. But if you watch like... I mean, if you go to 75, like Lo Mang looks kind of the same all throughout, you know, but if you watch Bruce Lee, my gosh, does he look like a young buck at the 74, 75, then 77, that's the prime, 77, 78, 79 in there. But in 79, he just starts looking weathered and tired. Like he definitely is amazing. Fist of Fury 3, great killer movies in that period. But yeah, he just looks like beat up, like kind of he's like not sleeping well, and this is all like getting to him.
And we may be doing him a slight disservice by still continuing to call him Bruce Lee. Like if we do another one of his movies, should we try and endeavor to actually call him Ho Chung Dao?
Hung Chao Dao,
yeah, that might be respectful. Yes, I think because
I think it's probably the weight of being forced to walk that far in another man's shoes, very reluctantly,
right,
and always sort of pigeonholed into being that guy when he kind of always kind of wanted to be his own guy, really. And I think it deserves to be, and had the ability to be. Like, it's not like, I think that there's an argument to be made with a couple of the other people who are making these sorts of movies that they probably didn't have that much to offer outside of those type of films. And kind of Bruceploitation at its most exploitative, right? But I think with Ho Chung Dao, he really did actually have the acting chops, the physical skill to do it, and I think clearly the intelligence there. He was like thinking as a filmmaker more and more as time was going on.
Right. Yeah. And Bruce Lee, he later like became a really like different style director than any of these type of films. So he grew a lot with it. But the thing is Dragon Lee and Bruce Lee leaned into it so much. They often talk about Bruce Lee, like if you ran into him back then, he just was Bruce Lee like 24/7. So I guess that works because you got to be in that role. But like you said, no, we should try to throw in, say, Ho Chung Tao more as a respect almost, you know. I say Bruce Lee respectfully, but I think you got to remember him. Like he said he didn't mind doing those things, but it just kind of we're throwing him the respect that what could have been. That's what he wanted, is to kind of, you know.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah, it's a crazy little subgenre, Bruceploitation. Like the fact that these people were backed into a corner and kind of forced into this, or some of them forced into this Bruce role, and so much good came out of it. But for them, it's like the worst thing possible, that they were stuck in this life of just being Bruce Lee all the time, and it's quite dark and sad for some of them. My
thing is growing up, like how you guys. Like Shaun, Dragon said you didn't have as much access to the Bruceploitation, and Shaun, you said you're just pushing away.
Yeah. I seriously doubt I had access to it anyway. If I went to the local video store, I imagine it's unlikely that I'd have a Bruceploitation choice. Maybe Tower of Death.
Okay, to us it was everything. It was all in the theaters. Well, more in the 70s, but on the rentals, oh my gosh, it was everything. So once I was so Bruce obsessed with that, you know, the VHS one, we all know, the red box. I mean, that thing I went through a million times. So this was like a continuation. I kind of felt, I love Bruceploitation so much because it felt like the next James Bond, you know. One might be Timothy Dalton, one might be, you know, and it might not ever reach the Sean Connery. I think Daniel Craig for me got there, you know, but what it was is it just, and when I was very young, until I read in the Rick Myers book explaining a bit, I think I was so young. I always knew it wasn't Bruce, but it just kind of did it for me. It was like hitting it, and it was different. Then as it branched out, when I saw Fist of Fury Part 2, even though it really has a lot of the same actors, it's a bona fide sequel, Bruce Lai, Ho Chung Tao, he really just, I could see the growth and the depth of him, and I saw it. But I also want to temper it for how much I love Bruceploitation. I have that, I can switch to it's so bad it's good element of it. So when I saw the craze of Bruceploitation, like, people were buying them. Oh my God, I don't even know what I'm getting into. I wouldn't be like a disclaimer, like, guys, like, and some of the ones on the first one were definitely a little more bottom of the barrel. Had some bangers on there for sure. The first Game of Clones when it came out, but you kind of got to temper expectations and just twist it a little bit. You know what I mean? For people going in.
A little bit. And I think you kind of have to sort of learn you kind of have to accustom your brain to turn off that part of you that winces against what can sometimes feel like low production values, even when it sometimes wasn't. Like, because of the quality of some of the prints that we're seeing even now after they've had a bit of work done to them. If you've come up kind of watching the Shaw Brothers side of things, where everything, we were so spoiled by that first wave of Celestial remasters and restorations, and because of the fact that everything there was shot on sound stages, and it has this sort of kind of hyper real quality to it that puts a sheen over the top of things, that when that sheen's not there, it's hard to sort of subconsciously not perceive that as like, oh, this is kind of crappy by comparison.
Yes, a lesser really product.
Kind of unfair, because it's like a lot of times they were doing just as inventive stuff, and they almost work as a better time capsule of the era now, because they shot on location so much, and they actually went out to the city, and so many of them were actually contemporary shot movies. It'd be a different thing if every single Bruceploitation movie was a period piece, but Bruce Lee didn't really make those sort of movies, right? So it'd be weird to have like a Bruceploitation kind of period wuxia movie, right?
Right.
Bruce never got a chance to kind of do that, so they were kind of like trying to keep the type of movie that he was making going, and Shaw's didn't really hit their groove with the kind of era of the sort of period set movies that we most love until well after Bruce had died, and kind of after we were coming off the tail end of the Bruceploitation craze too. They kind of predate a lot of what was happening at Shaw's in terms of the stuff that we love the most. I mean, obviously Shaw's were making movies in the 60s and the 70s, but what they were doing in the 60s was so radically different to what was happening kind of with Bruce Lee's movies and with the kind of the Bruceploitation movies. So they were kind of like almost like the precursor to the Kung Fu Shaw Brothers movies that we love the most. Bruceploitation stuff kind of came first, right?
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Jason.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, yes, but if you think of like Heroes 2 and stuff with the 1974, 70, the early Fu Shang ones, they do suffer from a lot of the slower fighting and that. If you go back, I mean, I love like Heroes 2, but it's a bit jarring, especially if you're watching like a Lau Kar. Oh, it's so good. But if you watch a Lau Kar Lung like 81 and then fly to that, you just have to make the adjustment, realize, okay, this is, it's maybe not even undercranked, to be honest. Who knows?
Probably not.
I think so the growth of Bruceploitation came up with that Shaolin cycle kind of like, so 74 it came up. And I really like what you said about the sheen too, because what it is Shaw Brothers has some conveyor belt elements and everything has to be this certain way. But that also means there's never going to be a scene without perfect overhead lighting, and stuff. Yeah. And that's what I saw in Ninja in the Deadly Trap. And I love how Dragon, you love that one so much. But I think that's why, I mean, I adore Five Elements Ninjas. I have to make an adjustment for Ninja in the Deadly Trap and not just the print, because like the indoor scenes, you could tell they didn't have some rigged lighting. It's kind of like, it's like just pure talent. And I think that one's going to really come up with a print, because when you have T Lung and Yusaki Kurata, and I mean, you just need to see it better. It's like, even when they're outside, it doesn't feel like we're outside because it's so murky. It's like, but the point is
it's so good.
But the point is Shaw Brothers had that upper hand that it just everything's so beautifully lit. And before I forget, as we wrap this up here, in the synopsis part, we didn't go over all the titles of this, did we?
No.
So we have Soul Brothers of Kung Fu, Kung Fu Avengers, which I knew it as, Incredible Dragon, almost as generic as Kung Fu Avengers. I swear, like Bruceploitation, they throw two names in a hat. Okay, then we have Tiger Strikes Again, and then Last Strike, which ironically is what a lot of people in America knew it as, like the American poster and stuff, but I knew it as Kung Fu Avengers. I think it might have played in the theater as Last Strike. But strangely, when I saw Soul Brothers of Kung Fu come along, actually, I think Last Strike is also the Chinese translation, if I remember correctly. Because if you go into HKMDB, that's what it's listed as.
Yeah.
But when I heard Soul Brothers of Kung Fu, it gave me the effect of Heroes of the East. I was so used to like Kung Fu Avengers. Yes. Well, I knew it as Challenge of the Ninja. So when Heroes of the East never fully got, something about that doesn't click with me. And for some reason, Soul Brothers of Kung Fu, it's kind of fun and stuff. It just, I like Kung Fu Avengers better as a title for some reason.
Okay. So like Soul Brothers of Kung Fu makes the one that makes the most sense to me.
It does make
the one
more
that feels, because it is like this weird perfect marriage of like kind of blaxploitation and Bruceploitation.
Agreed.
Together.
Yeah.
So,
no, it makes the most sense. I guess what it is just like, even Mortal Kombat to Crippled Avengers took me a second to make that adjustment. Now I think Crippled Avengers makes obviously more sense. There's something about Heroes of the East that just feels like a Neo Geo game title or something. It just doesn't have much bite to it. Soul Brothers is definitely cool, but I guess because I was so used to the previous title, it's kind of like something you love so much. Like, oh, that song is actually called this. It's hard.
I always, when I'm watching this, expect that King of Kung Fu super funky song that
is going to bust in.
Yeah, kind of. It feels like it's still in place in this movie, but I don't think it would hit as hard as the Rocky soundtrack.
Oh, that Rocky soundtrack!
It is so well.
It elevates this into fine art for me.
It usually is Shaft. It's usually that's in a lot of Shaft.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get that VHS and maybe I'll report back to you guys. Like, I think the Rocky's going to be in that, but I don't remember when I was young. Maybe because I knew Rocky's Eye of the Tiger. I didn't. This is
was that the first one? Was that Rocky 2, Eye of the Tiger?
I think Rocky 3. The band, it's Rocky 3. The band is, I think, Survivor.
Yeah.
And I stumbled on a YouTube video of him saying how he came up with it. They wanted him to do the music, so he was watching the fight scene or something of Rocky, and he tried to time the chords like dent, 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 dent. It's a funny,
Okay.
It's interesting, and it's funny when, like, as a guitar player yourself, Dragon, wouldn't you picture that being bar chords, right?
Yeah,
just dent. No, when he plays, it's like open, and then a G back to it's like open chords, like cowboy chords. So weird. Like, when you hear it, it sounds like it'd be a bar chord.
Plays it kind of like a
right. No, it's like A, G, A or something. Yeah. We're getting in the weeds on music here, but like,
hey, you've lost me.
We can wrap it up here, guys. Like, that's been a blast chatting Soul Brothers for sure.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this. I think there's something about just sitting down and a movie that all three of us kind of universally love with this one. Obviously, this was a prime example. And obviously, we've done a bunch of episodes where we absolutely love the film. But I think there's so much to uncover with this film. And by that, I mean, as a first timer coming to this film, which none of us were, but if anyone else is going to be a first timer, you're opening one hell of a door if this is kind of your first foray into Bruceploitation or Kung Fu cinema, which either one really. I think, I always love. So I always have this kind of like map in my head of Kung Fu cinema where you enter your first film and then you find, let's say, for me, for example, I watched Drunken Master, I saw Jackie Chan, I saw Huang Zhongli, and I went, oh, these two can fight. What else can I find them in? Right? That's what I said. And then I went to find a whole bunch of films like everyone else does. And I think this film in particular, there's so many people and aspects of it that you can go, I like this, I like this, I like this. Mm-hmm. What more is there? And I think it's such a great kickoff film.
Absolutely.
To Bruceploitation in particular, maybe Kung Fu cinema, I don't know. Just simply because the tropes in this film may not be found in other Kung Fu cinema films. Right. For example, this film, isn't going to be like your Mystery of Chess Boxing or your Drunken Masters or whatever. But I think as a standalone just piece of Hong Kong, or was this Hong Kong? This is a Hong Kong film?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure about the production. I mean, it's set in Hong Kong, and I'm not sure because it's not very clear where they were coming from. Maybe I don't know.
I wasn't sure.
I think that they come from the mainland, but I think it's definitely kind of we're very definitely shot in Hong Kong.
So it's a Hong Kong production.
Oh, so they came down the coast or something while they're on the water.
Yeah, that's how I took it. Yeah,
I think Just an example of just Hong Kong cinema. I think this is pretty close to flawless. I don't think you can get much better than this. And if I can quote Quentin Tarantino for a second, I took a quote from his small interview on this, and he says, Soul Brothers of Kung Fu is one of my favorite movies. I'm not saying it's the best film, but it's one of my favorites. There you go. That's how I'm going to sum it up.
I agree with you on that. I mean, it really does. It's when you were saying that, I pictured like if you were going to show someone like a Kung Fu movie, they haven't seen it. Part of me wants to do Heroes of the East to give that introduction, but to get this wraps up so much of the exploitation stuff, the griminess and all that. You might want to, like you said, throw in in like Mystery of Chess Boxing is a mixture of traditional and grimy or something.
That's
like
an interesting choice. Yeah. I kind of went the wrong direction with that. Maybe throw in a more classic kind of.
And it'd be a jarring double header. Maybe we have to do in 2 nights, but I'd love to show someone Heroes of the East. But this one will get people that were really resistant, who didn't maybe like appreciate the finer aspects of the traditions. This kind of just could give you, if you like horror movies, this really gives a lot of that. Grindhousey stuff.
It's all encompassing. I think this film is a perfect nugget of just many aspects of Kung Fu cinema being rolled into one film, and it just works. It works perfectly well. And prime example of 70s cinema, of Hong Kong cinema, of Kung Fu cinema, and Bruceploitation cinema. Seek it out.
And not hard to find. It's on YouTube.
Not hard to find. Yeah.
Dragon, wrapping it up, how does it land for you? And I mean, it's hard to say.
Way up high in terms of Bruceploitation movies. I think kind of like it's one of these ones that I feel is just fundamentally a really good film. Like it just also happens to be a Kung Fu film. So I'd kind of say that it's a good kind of gateway drug, hopefully for people who aren't normally into martial arts cinema or Kung Fu cinema, because it's not like Lau Gar Lung's movies, which I also absolutely adore, maybe more than any other sort of Shaw Brothers movies particularly, but his movies are such a celebration of the martial arts and of the martial world. This kind of isn't. This is very much like a real world story that just happens to have a shitload of Kung Fu in it. I think it's kind of wonderful from that point of view. It's just a really good, solid, not serious at times, but not overly serious or ponderous, funny at times, but never goofy, and genuine, real dramatic tension and some great performances in it. It's just an all like fantastic 1970s movie.
And off the back of what you just said, for those wondering, there is a shitload of Kung Fu in this film as well. There is a surprising amount of action.
That book, Jason, you and me both got that book that gives the percentages at the side of it, right? And they tell you exactly how much of the fight in percentage terms is action.
I got to look that up. You're right.
I should have done, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, we should do that for every film.
Well, I might have 2 of them. There's one, it's the martial arts movies of the 70s by a doctor, I think I want to say Daniel Craig or something. It sounds like James Bond, but I think that's the one. And then it has like an MA rating and a percentage. And it's all shot and every
so low. 5 M's like 8% or something.
And every picture, it's a beautiful scan of Shaw Brothers photos. That's a great book. Yeah, that guy, I was watching his interviews and he was just talking, the guy that wrote that book, he was talking to a little like class, like kind of like maybe at a college. And he was just trying to say how much 36 chamber meant to him. He started crying while he was talking about it. Man, I was like, this guy got the passion. He gets it.
Got it. He got the bug.
But great wrap up there, guys. And anyone listening, I definitely recommend checking this out. If you're on the fence, if you want to get into Bruceploitation, definitely know it's going to have some funny moments. And I think you'll definitely enjoy it.
I'm sure it's safe to say that virtually everybody who's listening to our little pod is already a very willing participants. If they haven't seen it already, I'm sure they will run off and track it down.
Fingers crossed.
All right, guys. And the same stuff, check out our YouTube channels. We got Shaun with Food for Thought, the Fanatical Dragon. Mine is Martial Arts Theater 3000. And any other parting words, guys?
No, just come back next
month. Thanks for listening. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everyone.
You know what? We don't do this enough as well. If you are on an audio platform and you are listening to us, do us a favor. Just give us a cheeky 5-star rating. Because we're trying to get ourselves out there a little bit. We have our little pod here, but we would love to get more people listening. So just give us a 5-star review if you can. That'd be nice. Or whatever they say, thumbs up, whatever it may be. Just give us a positive rating if you can. We would love that.
Yes, second that.
Cool. All right, guys. So we'll catch you later.
Thank you.
See you next month.